George Bush was confronted by an angry Iraqi veteran. Meanwhile, Bush is trying to be rehabilitated by himself and presumably by the media as a sort of avuncular figure who no longer is connected to the kind of, well, illegal war type stuff and angry rhetoric and condemnation that he used to face from the liberal left media. It makes me wonder, is anything set in stone? Is anything permanent? And is mainstream politics just a kind of theatre if Bush, who was reviled and loathed, is now being represented as a kind of friendly old aw shucks uncle? In this piece written in April, the journalist talks about how the Obamas now sort of speak in glowing terms about George Bush. But I'm old enough to remember that George Bush was treated with contempt and hatred. George Bush was the Trump of then. Every late night talk show host, oh, George Bush, he's an idiot, cowboy hats. Me, actually. I did a joke about that cowboy fella in the White House. I did jokes at MTV Awards, got my own death threats as a result of it. So I'm old enough to remember that he occupied the exact cultural space that Trump subsequently occupied. Of course, a sort of a sugar rush amplification that you would anticipate coming along with the sort of internet age, but the same archetype regarded as a sort of a dumb, macho idiot. Well, now he is being presented differently. Now, all of this image-based PR politics should be secondary from the actual facts of people's administration and the way that they use their power. George Bush was confronted by an Iraqi war veteran who gave him the truth about how he felt. You know, how often are we going to see things that if you saw him in a film, like a person being dragged away, a person's going, it was terrible, the things I saw in that war, man, and then they're dragged off by special services. You see that sort of thing in films all the time. You see people trying to sort of say the truth, but then they're sort of dragged off into the shadows. It's happening in reality. So what are we to believe? What is George W. Bush? What does he represent? And what's important? People's power, politics, or people's personalities? George W. Bush returns to the political stage with a promotional book tour. The media appearances focused on immigration reform look set to confirm Bush's improbable journey from reviled architect of the devastating Iraq War to elder statesman venerated by some liberals. The Republicans' approval rating has soared since he left office in 2009 and has been praised by his Democratic successor, Barack Obama. Not everyone, however, is comfortable with the rehabilitation of a leader whose war on terror yielded waterboarding and other forms of torture. They argue that Americans with short memories have become overly eager to embrace Bush 74 as a folksy and avuncular national treasure. I think what it tells you is that it's a facade. It kind of doesn't mean anything. The sort of figures and policies and wars and stories all just sort of pass by your eyes, while beneath it is some more permanent object operating and controlling what really happens. Even the rhetoric around Trump and Biden and all of that stuff is sort of like a sport for us to engage in, a rhetorical sport. Meanwhile, power does what power does. It doesn't really matter. It gives you a sort of a soap opera. There's no doubt in recent years, the crossover between entertainment and news and social media, this kind of blistering onslaught, this blizzard of information continually bombarding your retinas with data, has sort of created this sort of baffling miasma of information, and it's very hard to find truth. And so when you start living long enough to see the cycle pass, you start to query, well, what should I believe in now then? You know, I've watched this in its nascent phase and now I'm seeing it in its waning phase. Why am I going to get involved in any of this rhetoric, in any of this discourse, when I can sort of see now where it's going because I've watched where it's been? Jackson Lears, cultural historian, said, I'm hoping there'll be some pushback against this rehabilitation because I think it's an absolute scandal that he should be rehabilitated and tied up in any way as progressive. And of course, the confrontation with a war veteran is a reminder of George Bush's legacy outside of the PR operation, which is obviously immutable because it's got no connection to truth. So you can dial it up, dial it out, down, say it's fantastic, say it's not fantastic. But this war veteran is a person that sort of had experiences as a direct result of Bush's policies, and this is how that went down.
Mr. Bush, when are you going to apologize for the million Iraqis that are dead because you lied? You lied about weapons of mass destruction. You lied about connections to 9/11. You lied about Iraq being a threat. You sent me to Iraq. You sent me to Iraq in 2003. My friends are dead. Joshua Castile. You killed people.
I feel like if someone's served in a war or sacrificed something for their country, that it kind of entitles them to more than a pension. It entitles them to a voice. Otherwise, the language and rhetoric around the kind of glorification of troops and soldiers is just a recruitment tool rather than any genuine honour or respect. You know, like, if you only listen to people who agree with you, or only revere people who support your interests, that's not reverence at all.
You lied! You lied about WMD! A million Iraqis are dead because you lied!
Why wouldn't you anticipate that? See, while it's clear that to some people that entire political epoch is a kind of game, Clinton, Obama, Bush, they're all mates, it don't matter. Some people are going to wars during that time, watching people die, killing people. Like, oh, I thought this was real. Oh, no, it's not real. It's just a bunch of economic interests lined up in that direction, so we did that. Now those economic interests are going this way, so we're doing that. You know, well, that's what I believe. That's what I believe. And I've not obviously suffered anything like this person has suffered. And I'm appalled by it, and I know that you are, and you'll tell me in the comments what you think about it and what you feel about it. This isn't like about a personal attack on George Bush or whether he's like a good guy or not. This is about the way that the media and the government conspire to create stories that are artificial and in fact they're discrete from reality, just something that you watch in front of your eyes, while actual reality in terms of decision-making processes and how power operates and who gets what where when, that takes place elsewhere, and you know, there's collateral damage, human damage.
My friends are dead because you lied! You need to apologize! Apologize! You need to apologize! Apologize!
He must have been feeling really nervous before he did that. I've done a few mad things in my life, never as, well, maybe as mad as I can't remember right now, but like, you know, the feeling where you know you're going to say something. Oh man, it's pretty heavy. That historian continued, this is a man in company with Dick Cheney, of course created more permanent and long-lasting damage to the presidency and the American system of government than probably anyone before or since. He was a man who wrapped his very narrow-gauge nationalism, his chauvinism and militarism in the rhetoric of righteousness. He was an evangelical Christian, and that to me is more offensive in many ways than Trump's style, which was overt, offensive and repellent. The comparison to Trump is an interesting one because it sort of suggests that these figures are kind of inflated, condemned, critiqued, and it doesn't really mean what people are saying it is. It's like a distraction technique. It's like, look over here, look at this thing, meanwhile business as usual, and business is the operative word. The promotional tour put the seal on Bush's comeback to the public stage. After Biden's inauguration, he made a joint TV appearance with Bill Clinton and Obama that presented the trio as guardians of democracy in wake of Trump's scorched earth assault on institutions. Well, how are we to get behind this idea of scorched earth assault on institutions when a person who was treated in the exact same way by the same media is now being brought forth? It is not inconceivable to consider that Trump will be sort of pushed out on a trolley in 20 years' time to sort of like go, oh, he is old Trump. He was a bit of a character. You know, like, because look back at some of that stuff around George W. You would not have believed it. You would not have believed it that this person could be rehabilitated. They hated him. Bush's legacy includes the illegal invasion of Iraq in search of non-existent weapons of mass destruction at a cost of hundreds of thousands of lives. He botched the government response to Hurricane Katrina and presided over the biggest financial crisis since the Great Depression. These are pretty significant events. So if you actually look at what happened, I'm not sure because I'm not politically astute enough to know, but I don't think anything that significant happened under Trump, although he said many things and things were said about him that are against my personal beliefs, and I all respect for you if you're down with that, you know, but these were heavy things that went on, the torture and war crimes, Hurricane Katrina, that sort of kind of some people, certainly Kanye, regarded it as a racist kind of response. The 2008, was it 2008 still? That was a mental time, wasn't it? It's weird. History's moving so quickly. The world's moving so quickly. We've got no time to sort of set our focus and interpret and understand. I suppose that's why it's important to piece together your own understanding of reality, but to have some kind of collaboration and support with other people. How can you have any sort of sense of truth and reality without honest conversation when certain things are prohibited and prevented because of presumed allegiances? It's absolute madness and ridiculousness, and leads to the kind of these pustule explosions of truth, such as that veteran just like going, I've never had a chance to speak, I've never had a chance to tell the truth. What is this weird facade, this weird theatre where someone can be brought out as I'm an old statesman, when, you know, as he said himself, he watched people die, he participated in the death of others, primarily for economic reasons. I think of it as yet another unintended and catastrophic consequence of Trump's derangement syndrome, the sense that, well, maybe he wasn't so bad after all because he, Laura, Barack and Michelle like each other. This seems to be the mentality we're dealing with. I'd go one further and say that it's because within that bandwidth of communication, there is no real veracity. It's entirely rhetorical. Certain ideas are amplified, certain ideas are diminished, and in a way, it's just a sort of a blur of noise, a cacophony of distraction. Real truth happens elsewhere. Hopefully, at least here, real truth can be discussed. What is happening in your life? What are you experiencing as a result of the political decisions made by these successive governments that, when push comes to shove, all cozy up to each other at dinners? They're all in it together. That's where there is real collaboration, where there is a real social contract, where there is support, where there is redemption, because there's very little of it out in the wastelands created by their deception. Let me know what you think of that argument in the comments below. Tell me what you feel and what you've noticed from your own history watching this kind of media and seeing how it operates. Give us a like, subscribe to my channel, share this around, sign up to my mailing list at russellbrand.com. It's one little click to hear one little guy communicating with you. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at that one. It's brilliant. And if you need to chill now, check this out and subscribe to my Awakening channel where I do meditation, stuff like that. Thanks for watching.